listeners, and welcome to Brief Encounters, Law School and Beyond. I am your host, Riya Gupta, a second-year student at National Law University. What exactly is Brief Encounters all about? Brief Encounters is a podcast about exploring the incredible journeys of Indians who have pursued legal education abroad and carved out successful careers in foreign jurisdictions. Our goal is to share their stories, experiences, and practical advice to inspire and guide those of you who are considering studying law abroad. But this isn't just a one-way conversation. I encourage you to engage with us throughout the episode. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to share your own experiences, feel free to reach out through our social media channels. We love hearing from our listeners and making this a space where we can all learn and grow together. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode and meet our amazing guest, Mr. Stay tuned and let's embark on this enlightening journey together. Today, we are excited to welcome Siddharth Chittal to the podcast. Siddharth is a legal professional with a rich background in international law, having studied at Amity Law School, Noida, and he pursued an advanced studies at institutions like Queen Mary University of London and the Hague Academy of International Law. With certifications in areas like international arbitration and art law, he brings wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion. Let's dive into his journey and insights into the world of international dispute resolution. So, hello, Mr. Siddharth. How are you feeling today?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So, if you could just give us a brief timeline of your journey starting from undergrad to where you are right now.
So the brief timeline would be, I think we might have to go a little bit before my undergrad itself, wherein I was an athlete. I used to play taekwondo, and I also got an opportunity to play for India at different other competitions. And while the course was going on in my school, I think there was an incident that happened to which I learned something called arbitration that came into play. And when arbitration came into play, obviously there is confidentiality that was present over there. So obviously I did not know about it, but there were some issues with the federation. But what happened in the end of the day, though the dispute was not solved because of XYZ reasons, and it could not be solved by the courts also, what brilliant thing that happened was I learned about a new aspect, a facet, or a new world which I did not know about. And that was the legal world. And that's when I got into arbitration. It also helped that I was also started to do some kind of public speaking, like MUNs and all. So that also helped me up in coming to this conclusion that, yeah, I feel law was my calling. So eventually I did go to law school. While I was at law school, I did almost 5 moot court competitions. And I was able to go to different summer schools. One was in China, which was the Xiamen Academy of International Law, and one was at The Hague, right adjacent to the Peace Palace, which was the Hague Academy for International Law. And also my development, because there were not many facets of international law or sports law or private international law like arbitration present in my own college. So I wanted to always divulge myself. I wanted to learn more about these things. And that's when I ended up doing some certificate courses from here and there to pick up my knowledge, to increase my knowledge, and just to understand what the subject matter is about.
Right. So yeah, that's quite a great timeline. And considering that Project LLM is all about understanding the LLM journey that you would have pursued. So what was the reason behind specifically choosing the particular course at Queensberry, even choosing Queen Mary as a university where you wanted to pursue LLM? What was the entire mindset behind that?
Okay. So coming back to the point of international law and arbitration and everything, when I was at The Hague or when I was in China, I realized that there was something that I wanted to do more further. Like I could understand my law degree it was a good degree. I'm not denying the subjects which were there, but it was not catering to whatever I needed further. So right in 2019 end, which was about my 9th semester, I had started applying to universities. I'd got some acceptances also, and very early acceptances also. Obviously, there was some administrative work that was been present. That's why they were all conditional offers at that time. Moving further, obviously, after 2019 came 2020, wherein we were all locked in and there was not much freedom of movement that was happening around the world. So I had decided this one thing, that how I had my experience in China and how I had my experience in The Hague. While I was there, I experienced it. I wanted the same kind of experience I just did not want to not have that experience. And that's why I had decided in 2020, 2020 and then 2021 that I will still wait and apply for it. Coming to the process of the LLM and choosing the LLM, firstly, I want to thank AACC Global. So they're like an agency, a consulting agency that helped me in getting the whole process done. But given that it was a little bit different for me also from them also because they get students generally who have no clue what they want to do. But I knew I had researched my 10 universities, I had researched countries. Like, for example, many people have this thing that they only want to go to America. I had not had that thing. I was like, let's be open broaded. So the countries that I had in my minds were obviously the three common law countries that were Britain, America, and Australia. And I had taken two civil law countries because they were also upcoming markets. And from a viewpoint of an upcoming market, but from a viewpoint also to understand different ways how the law works. So that was France and Belgium. Obviously, I got into some universities there. Amsterdam University was one of the most unique ones that I thought like I'll just apply for the heck of it. And I did get in and it was a good course, but it was not fitting up with the timeline that I had in my mind. So coming to the end with also a lot of not a lot, but a few rejections, much more acceptances. It all came down to two universities, which was Edinburgh and Queen Mary. The only factor was everything looked well in Edinburgh's favor, and I think I was supposed to go there itself. But the only factor that came about was the subjects that I wanted to study. And there was this one subject that intrigued me a lot, and Queen Mary was the one place that was giving me that subject. So I had decided to go on Queen Mary for that subject.
Okay, so that means you chose the universities on the basis of subjects that were extremely important to you.
Yes, subjects was something that was extremely important to me because subjects make the professors. Professors make what you will be adhering to and seeing and how your concepts are going to be there. So that's why.
Very
Because
true.
when you come to an LLM stage, a lot of things and a lot of facets depends upon the professors and how conceptual your professors could be.
Very true, very true. So while we're on the topic of applications and acceptances, rejections, what was your application process like for Queen's Mary? Any challenges that you faced, or the courses, the summer schools that you did, extracurriculars?
Yeah,
What was the
so yes, it was not just one particular course, there were different kinds of courses that were there. So for example, when I wanted to go to Queen Mary, the two other courses that I was really, really looking forward for, and even if I could audit them, I really wanted to, was obviously the construction arbitration course, which because I had dealt in construction arbitration in India and I'd worked, not, I wouldn't say extensively, but a fair amount of time in construction arbitration. And the other part was sports law, because obviously that was the genesis of me getting into law. But those two subjects were both under sabbatical. The professor went into sabbatical, so I could not take up those courses in the entirety of my course. But the one course that I was really intrigued, other than obviously the investment arbitration course, which was very, very important to me, was art law as a subject and art law and dispute resolution. So, for example, Queen Mary is the only university that gives an LLM in art law. So there are many different bits and facets of art law, but what I was more interested was the dispute resolution part of it because it encompasses a little bit of everything, and that's why I was intrigued. Because another reason is because I have this affinity towards the history, towards history of anything, and to the subject of history. And art law was that one convince wherein I could feel that okay, I could study the subject that I like, that is history, and with the subject that I not also like, that is law.
Right, right, makes sense. So in the application process, I'm assuming there were SOPs and all of those recommendations and everything that you had to gather. Could you walk us through those particularities?
Yeah. Yeah, so let's be honest, every universities have different ways of formatting or their application process. Some universities are easy, wherein they're just like, okay, just send us your transcripts, your cover letter, and one or two recommendation letter. Some universities are extremely hard, like application process. Like for example, Sonspo has a 10-step application process wherein each step is a different format, a different way you have to do it. So you have to go through those processes and you have to see how it matches. Now, with Queen Mary and Edinburgh, I think mostly UK universities was the SOP, which was mattered, the transcripts, and your recommendation letters. Now, for example, if you've just come out of university, they require two, and both of them could be from your professors. But if you come out of, for example, working, if you're a professional who's coming to an LLM again, so they required you to have one academic and one professional. So it was a mixture of hidden trial and everything. Now, the point and the aspect and the facet that I was more intrigued was many universities make it more easier for you to give, for the recommender to give the recommendation. For example, Queen Mary also has a format of questionnaire. So it makes it easier because they also understand that not many professionals do have the time to write your recommendation and everything, so that the student should also not suffer.
Makes sense.
So,
Now, this is like a question that I think arises almost every student's mind. It arises in my mind as well. Which one do you recommend? Going for an LLM right out of college, or gaining experience and then going for an LLM?
both are very different experiences, and I do not want to overstep my boundaries on your ambitions or anything. Now, for example, if somebody wants to learn tax law and want to work in tax, now it is imperative that they might have to, like, I'm not saying imperative, but there's a high chance that they might have to do an LLM. So you can't stop that flow. Or for example, somebody wants a UN job, you need that LLM because you need that master's in international law. That's why. But it is also recommended if you could wait for a year or two, grind it out a little. I also understand some people also do not want to grind, like are not a little bit wary about grinding it out because let's be honest, sometimes salaries don't match up, sometimes experiences don't match up, and maybe with an LLM that salary and experiences might match up to that level. So there are always that facet. So my recommendation would always be that you have to see how does it pan out, and you have to see how does it pan out in the way that how it's going to help you in your career progression. Now, for example, if you want to go into sports law, so I would say that the best is to do an LLM and go and do the FIFA LLM or something like that, and then go for that because it just makes sense.
Right.
Because you know your area of law, you know your area of practice, and you can do. But now, for example, if you want to go into criminal law, so maybe me doing an LLM might not actually make sense because an LLM for criminal law might be dealing in something more on criminology, which
Yeah.
you might want to do further
Mhm.
later. Do the procedure first because let's be honest, sometimes LLMs do not have except the arbitration LLM. Other LLM may or may not have a lot of procedures that they might be tackling with.
Right, right, right. And you mentioned within your application process, recommendation letters, SOP. If you could tell us a little bit about your approach with regards to writing an SOP. From my own personal experience, I've understood that countries like US and Canada, they prefer certain sob stories at times, but UK is more academic oriented. So what was your take on the SOPs and personal statements?
It's completely true. Like Australia, when I was writing, or UK, or US, I was writing. I remember my SOP was about a 3-page long SOP wherein I had to mention all the way from my athletic career to my shift to my injuries, everything, because I have like multiple injuries. But in my, I think I liked my UK procedure because my UK procedure was very simple. Basically, it was a run through of my CV, but a little bit extra about what I learned, which was not written on my CV, obviously, and why I'm choosing the universities, why the professors, and also a little bit about the city. For example, I remember when I was applying for Durham, I categorically mentioned about Esbaston, which is one of the most, let's say, heatiest cricket ground ever.
Hmm.
So, like they like those little bit of anecdotes or anything. So you're like, okay, you move forward with it. Another aspect, another facet to this is you have to be very crisp when you're doing a UK one because they're more interested about your academic and your progression because they also understand that there are people who are 10 years in the experience of law who are going to be sitting with you and doing the
Yeah.
so that's also that's
I,
it.
I felt that too. I think UK tries evaluating the reason for why you want to attend this particular college, not just, why you want. They are very practical in their approach when it comes to writing statement of purposes. And I genuinely enjoyed that process when I was applying for undergrad as well. So yeah, I understand. In that way, I'd say UK is slightly better when it comes to the application process compared to the US and everywhere else.
I think it was more concise, I could say. It was more
Exactly,
concise,
exactly,
crisp.
exactly. Yeah. So now that we've gone through with the application process, we can move on to the acceptances. And you said that you received a good number, so that's amazing. But at the same time, obviously, rejections are a part of life. So how did you deal with any rejection that you received during your application process? What kept you motivated despite any setbacks?
Yeah, so as I rightly stated before, rejection is part of the game. Let's be honest and let's be possible. You do get acceptances, you do get rejections. And one thing that I want to convey to all the listeners that would be there would be that it's okay to feel bad. It is a rejection. It's perfectly fine. You cannot be monotonous wherein you go like, oh, okay, fine. I'm a heart of steel. It's okay. The only aspect is you don't have to wallow and you can wallow, but you don't have to dwell in it. What you have to do is move further. Like, okay, fine, this application, okay, fine, this did not work out, let's do it next year. And also remember that there is always a next year. Like maybe there's something that was missing this year, but next year you can be working and you might get more experiences. You might get more orders in your name if you're in litigation, or you can be working in more transactions if you're into VC or corporate affairs. So, these things have, it's never one face, one aspected of one aspect or two aspects. There are multiple aspects that might not work out. And sometimes also remember that you are unique in your ways. So maybe that university might not want you, but another place might want you, and your uniqueness might come out over
I
there.
agree.
So,
agree.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason. There might be a reason why someone gets rejected from some college and gets accepted somewhere else, because that's just a better place for them to grow at. That's
Yeah.
one perspective that people should keep in mind when dealing with rejections.
And also understanding that, yes, everybody does want to get into that prestigious college, but then there are only few seats, but then does not make you not prestigious.
Exactly. The competition is quite tough, and you're just one out of several thousands applications that they receive. So it definitely is very, very tough. Now, moving on to college life, life in London, life abroad. I mean, I understand that you've spent quite a lot of time outside India. But how did you adapt to life in London specifically, academically and personally? What were some of the biggest challenges you faced? How did you overcome them?
So London's actually a pretty great city. Can't deny. It's very vibrant in its ways. Kind of reminds me of, because my parents are from Mumbai and I grew up in Gurgaon, which is closer to Delhi. Kind of reminds me of best of both worlds, and a little bit smaller, I would say. I think what has this one aspect that it caters to everybody, but can also make you feel lonely at some times. So first, going on the academic aspect, I think the more on the academic aspect is that try to make friends, try to be friends with everybody. Not everybody, but obviously some people, you cannot be practically, you cannot be friends with everybody, but try to understand perspective, because there are many people who are going to come from different places and corners around the world. Let's be honest, in many people are going to come from India itself and many different corners of India. That is because India is so big and so vast in itself. So you don't know. So it's a very learning experience. I think what we have to learn from a common law trained background is understanding the civil law backgrounds, because there's an aspect that we are not taught. Like, for example, students in England taught like law with French or law with German. So basically, they're taught that one civil law aspect, whereas we are not taught that. And I think that is very important, especially if you're going to an international effect, or if you're going for cross-border transactions or dispute resolution. Understanding things, understanding why people think in that certain way, it's also very important. Now, coming back to the factor of academic, the professors will be nicer to you. Any university that you go, do attend your tutorials, even if sometimes you find it to be boring. I can get it, I've been there, but do attend it. It's going to be smaller. Ask your questions. Ask them if they can have extra tutorials also, because sometimes some universities do not give you big tutorials. They just give you like a 1 hour in 2 weeks or something. Furthermore, understand that your time in the university would be short. So try to gain the most of it. Talk to people, understand with people, and to an aspect that you might feel lonely because it is a new place. For example, I did travel around in China. I stayed for a month. In The Hague, I stayed for a month. But the aspect that came about was when I was coming over here was I did not have a return ticket. Now, for example, wherever I went, I always had a return ticket back home. But this is the first time ever that I did not have that return ticket. So it was a very new feeling. It was a unique feeling, but it was a feeling that you had to muster through. And I'm sure everybody musters through it. It's fine. It's totally okay.
Yeah, yeah. And this is something that I have heard as well. I mean, this was one of the reasons why I chose not to go to London for my undergrad as compared to coming to India. Both in India and places where Indian communities are flourishing, you live a very community led life where there's always a sense of togetherness and everyone works together and all of that. But it's assumed, and from what I've heard from my peers as well, in London and Europe, it's quite a solitary life at times. Did you ever feel that sort of, lack of community or lack of being in touch with your culture, or missing your family? Did you ever feel any of that? How did you deal with all of that?
So let's go with the what you said it in the latter, and then let's go further.
Right.
With my family, I don't think so, because I think one advantage that I have is that I'm a single kid, so both my parents' attention come to me. So that was not, and plus I'm not. I do talk to my other family members. It's not that much, and even if I was in India, I didn't talk to them that much, so it's perfect. So it pans out perfectly. So yeah, every weekend I have a father conversation, and every second day I have a mother conversation, is what I call it.
Right.
So yeah, obviously mothers have the motherly feeling.
100%.
So, but yes, there was some facets wherein, you muscle through, like, for example, like a very basic thing of setting up a kitchen. Now,
Mm.
I set it my own way, but when my mother came for my own graduation, she's like, how do you set up your own kitchen? And I was like, listen, I did my way. Okay. And then my mother also understood in a way that, listen, this boy actually came on his own, found a place on his own, did everything on his own, and then obviously set a kitchen. So yeah, he actually did what he could. And I was like, I honestly discounted myself, and I was like, wow, my mom actually didn't discount me. And I was like, okay. So there's an aspect when you grow older and when you have these experiences, you'll see from your own parents that your parents might kind of respect you a little more.
Very true.
Coming back to your culture and anything, let's be honest, I'm in London, so I have not faced that problem at all. I have to go all the way out of my way to actually experience some other culture. For example, I speak French and I'm trying to learn Arabic, so because of the North African touch, because I love North African music. So I had to go all the way out to like kind of listen and do these bands and everybody. And sometimes you'll be like, oh, why are you here? You just like for example, I come from Goa.
Right.
So the grandfather tried to teach me Portuguese, but obviously could not make it. But I have Brazilian friends. So the other day I remember, like not the other day, I think last month I went for a concert, which was a Portuguese concert, and I was alone because none of my friends obviously are Portuguese speakers. But I had the ball of my time. So yeah, London has that one aspect wherein if you're like, you know what, I wanted today try Arabian food, you just go and have it. It's
That's
right around the corner somewhere. It's not going to be far. You're going to have it. You're going to have a ball of time. Like, honestly, I've had more authentic Bangladeshi food than I was in India. Even though Bangladeshi and Bengali food are not very much different, but
yeah.
still, the aspect that comes about is sometimes you might face people who might not share the same culture as you, or might share the same culture, but then they're very strict or very rigid about it. So you have to kind of let them go.
Right.
Coming to this point itself, I'm not going to lie, there are aspects that you might feel that, okay, I'm being ousted or ostracized because of XYZ reasons. Now the problem that you have, it is a problem, it's not a problem, but the thing you have to realize is you're way more than that. You're way more than whatever you are physically or mentally. You are a person who is amazing. So
Right.
what you have to do, you just have to like shun them off.
That's very true.
Shun by their work, shun them off by physical, or just get away from the place. It's fine.
Boundaries is very, very
Yes. Yeah, because as not a reflection, but sometimes as Indians we are taught not to build boundaries
Mm-hmm.
because we are told like, okay, no, you have to talk to everybody, but then you don't really have to talk. Like you can talk to everybody, then understand that okay, if that person doesn't want to interact with you, you don't have to go further.
Right, right. That's good advice. So from what I grasp, it's all about gaining as many experiences as you can, but also holding your ground and talking to the people who make you feel comfortable in this new place.
If I can say in the more modern way, you will find your tribe.
Yeah, 100%.
You
100%.
might not find anybody else. You might not find a companion partner, anything.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. But I promise you, in London, you'll find your tribe.
That's amazing. And I think that's quite wonderful to know for me as well, considering
Mm.
after a few years I'll definitely be pursuing them as well. But if we could move on from an LLM to then career, how has the LLM experience shaped your career goals within the various different fields that you have expertise in? And what kind of opportunities did you have during your LLM to network and gain personal experiences and all of that?
So I think the best way to come about was when I was in my LLM career, how it's helped my career is firstly understanding that there are more specializations that I could actually go into
Mm.
that I did not know before. There are more things that I could read that I did not know before, more researches that I could read. I think one of the best thing that was there for Professor Ferrari, who was in SOSPO, was that write research papers, make mistakes, but write them, because how is the world going to know that you exist? Networking, yes, considering the fact that one of the three things that run London and the London economy is law. So you have a lot of different law firms over here. They all keep on having events. They all keep on calling people for events. So you can be a student and then you can interact with barristers. I've interacted with many barristers. Like one barrister who I really, really admire is Kawar Qureshi KC. So he's he was in London, but now he's based out of Qatar. And he's one of those barristers who's represented both India and Pakistan in different other cases in international law. I really, really admire him as his advocacy skills and his professional skills as a barrister. So yeah, it's very fun to meet people like them, meeting people like Lord Reed and all of them, because you'll understand when you come over here that the RCJ, that's the Royal Court of Justice, which houses both the High Court and the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, not very far away from these places, and they're open to access to visit. Like I understand sometimes as interns in India, we had problems to go to the Supreme Court. We had to get past this, we had to do this. But touchwood over here, it's not the case. So you can actually go and visit.
Right, right, right. As we're reaching almost the end of our podcast, could you share like a memorable experience or like an anecdote from your time studying abroad?
I don't know, like there are so many experiences. It's really, really hard to pit one point of view or to the other because I don't want to pit them. But I think the more important one was I think the one aspect that you have to understand is that in London there is like a lot of pub culture.
Mm-hmm.
So pub is not just a pub. So the pub definition, wherein in India got it wrong, was public house. So it's a house which holds the public. Simple. They serve alcohol there. And
Right.
I think the one experience that I would always love is because in my first semester, I used to have 6 hours of classes on a Monday.
Mm.
So you needed that time off, and then the whole week you did not have anything. So you needed a time off. So I remember there was a there were two pubs next to my own university. So you could see that on the weekend you would not drink because you'll be doing your readings, you'll be either working or doing your readings, and then you'll be getting ready for Monday, and then on Monday you'll be like drinking. So everybody was like, apologies. So everybody was like, oh, generally people have a Friday drinking, but for
Mm-hmm.
that one semester we actually had a Monday drinking, then a Friday drinking.
That does sound fun. All right, and it looks like you had a great time doing your LLM. But looking back, is there anything that you could have done differently, or any particular advice that you would like to give to future LLM candidates?
Not really. In hindsight, I would say that just build up your own things, just see your own aspects, see different application processes because sometimes I did not. Like for example, I knew my French was not that good,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to do French. So I wanted to do something in the French law aspect. So there was this LLM in Queen Mary, which Queen Mary gives in Paris, which is Queen Mary Paris LLM with the Sorbonne University. The only thing was, I think in hindsight, if I could have seen, maybe I could have improved my French way more because I was at a B1 and they at least needed a B2 C1. So maybe, these kind of things which are there, but honestly, if I look back, I don't really see any much of a difference. It was a fun experience. Everything that I studied was fun. Everything that I did was important, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was just an experience that was wholesome.
Makes sense, makes sense. And what are your future plans like? How do you see international education in general influencing them?
Yeah, like, so understanding this, that first of all, people say that, oh, you need to do an international education. You don't,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. But if you want to get the world view and you want to get a view from a point of view that, okay, I need to once go and see. So it is good to do an international education because I would say that, yes, it is important to experience things.
Right.
Coming back in hindsight and looking further, I would also recommend people to see what kind of an international education they want and know it. But in the end of the day, while you're studying, while you're doing this, also have your fun because this time is never going to come back.
True.
So also have your fun, have your experiences, make your experiences. I'm not saying make mistakes, please. Don't get me wrong. Be smart, be judgmental, do the right, but also do have fun because you're not in a closed door. We are humans and we are meant to open up. If you want to learn those new things, do it. Like learn it. Like for example, England especially has this thing of after work or after university sports events. Like for example, some people play rugby, some people play cricket, and then they on the weekend they play the league games. Do go for them, understand them, enjoy them, because you never know how that's also kind of networking that's different. Not every networking is only in a law firm at the 20th floor and looking at London. Okay, and having maybe that Prosecco glass. There are some networkings which are done in the field. You
Right.
never know.
Very true.
So enjoy it and just
Yeah.
enjoy your time and see where you see your demands than the college's
Right.
demands.
You basically have to always be ready to learn. Wherever you are, you just have to
Yeah.
experience and learn at the same time. And I think that's something that law school, international education, it just teaches you that as being a lawyer as well, I think you're just constantly learning wherever you go. The learning never stops. The degree might, but
If
the
you feel that
learning never does.
I know, like I'm not gonna lie, if you feel that the learning is gonna stop for you, I think you're in the wrong profession.
Exactly, because it never really does. Every day you wake up and you learn something new. Very true,
Yeah.
very true. So I think that brings an end to our first podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you and hearing about your insights and experiences. And all of your advice and stories, they are resonating with me at least, and of course to our listeners. So I appreciate your time and I look forward to seeing where your journey takes you next.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much to all our listeners for tuning in. We appreciate your support and hope you found today's episode insightful. Don't forget to leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. And stay tuned for more exciting episodes. Thank you so much.